For thousands of years, Damascus stood as one of the world's oldest continuously inhabited cities. It was an absolute jewel. But in 634 CE, its massive Roman walls, its gates, and its incredibly strategic position made it the ultimate prize in the Levant. The siege that followed? Well, it literally changed the course of Middle Eastern history. Let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the monumental Siege of Damascus.
Damascus had seen empires rise and fall for millennia. But in the autumn of 634, its formidable Roman gates made it the #1 target for a newly united, highly mobile Rashidun army. The soldiers driving this early Islamic expansion were, quite frankly, a completely different breed of warrior than the Byzantines were used to fighting. They were agile, they were hungry for success, and they possessed this legendary, almost unstoppable momentum.
So why was the mighty Byzantine Empire so vulnerable right at this exact moment? We've got to zoom out and look at the geopolitical map. A grueling 18-year war with the Persian Sasanian Empire had just wrapped up in 628. Sure, the Byzantines won, but it left them totally exhausted, both financially and militarily. Meanwhile, down in the Arabian Peninsula, a massive shift had just happened. By 632 and 633, a newly unified Arabian military force under the Rashidun Caliphate had emerged, harnessing the momentum of a united Arabia to kick off a rapid, unprecedented outward expansion.
And Damascus, well, it wasn't just another dot on the map. Known as the Paradise of Syria, it was this vital, thriving crossroads. Its location meant that whoever held those walls essentially controlled the trade routes and the entire administrative flow of the Levant. It was the absolute jewel in the crown of the Byzantine East.
The real catalyst for the siege came after a catastrophic Byzantine defeat at the Battle of al-Jarrah in July of 634. After taking that crushing loss, Byzantine forces were reeling. Morale was absolutely at rock bottom. The victorious Muslim forces immediately seized on this, cleared their southern flank, and pushed fiercely north, converging on the heavily fortified Syrian capital with overwhelming force.
Section 1. The Commanders, a Clash of Tactics and Faith.
As the siege lines were drawn around this ancient city, the fate of Damascus really came down to two vastly different leaders. On one side, you have Khalid ibn al-Walid, the commander-in-chief of the Muslim forces. He was a wildly aggressive, unpredictable tactician. He had actually just stunned the Byzantines by crossing the desert via a completely unexpected route to enter Syria. On the flip side was Thomas, the Byzantine defender and representative of Emperor Heraclius. The historical traditions describe Thomas as highly educated, devout, and courageous, a guy deeply entrenched behind formidable Roman walls, totally determined to hold the line.
Section 2. Encircling the Ancient City. Okay, so with the city finally in their sights, the Rashidun army faced a massive problem. How do you crack an enormous, well-stocked fortress when you don't really have traditional heavy siege equipment? It was a daunting, almost impossible obstacle. We're talking about perimeter walls standing 36 feet high. The city had 6 highly fortified, heavily manned gates and packed a garrison of roughly 15 to 20,000 troops. Plus, the nearby river Bereta was too shallow to offer any defensive help, making those walls a true engineering marvel of the ancient world.
To solve this giant puzzle, Khalid meticulously choked off the city by spreading his 20,000 troops across all 6 of those gates. He stationed different commanders at each exit to make absolutely sure nobody could leave, and 0 supplies could get in. Khalid personally took the eastern gate, which is where the heaviest fighting would eventually go down, while his second-in-command, Abu Ubaidah, covered the Jabiya gate on the western side.
But he didn't just park his army outside the walls. Khalid orchestrated an absolute masterclass in isolation. He sent cavalry detachments far up north near Emesa and out west at Pella, specifically to intercept any Byzantine relief columns trying to come to the rescue. By executing these precise strategic steps, he totally cut the city off from outside help. Meanwhile, his own troops, they were living comfortably off the lush agricultural Ghouta oasis right outside the city. It created a complete logistical nightmare for Thomas. As weeks turned into a month, the city was completely locked down and supplies were dropping fast. Thomas launched a few desperate counterattacks, but they were all repelled. The stage was now perfectly set for a dramatic, deeply complex climax that modern historians are actually still actively debating to this day.
Section 3. Assault and Capitulation.
Let's jump to the events of September 18th, where a single piece of unexpected intelligence literally changed everything. According to historical chronicles, a local Syriac priest named Jonah managed to slip out of the city.
In exchange for immunity and the safety of his fiancée, he tipped Khalid off about a local festival happening that very night. Because the defenders were distracted by the festivities, a specific section of the wall near the eastern gate was left lightly defended. It was the perfect opening for a surprise nighttime assault.
Now, what happened next is a fascinating contradiction in the early texts, and it's a debate that modern historians are still trying to untangle. Islamic historians record that Khalid violently breached the east gate and fought his way inward. But get this, simultaneously, on the total opposite side of the city, Abu Ubaidah was peacefully entering the Jabiyah Gate, having just negotiated a formal surrender treaty directly with Thomas.
Just picture this scene for a second. You have two Muslim commanders converging right in the center of the city at the Mariamite Cathedral. One is covered in the dust of battle, while the other is walking peacefully alongside Byzantine elites. They actually argued over whether the city was conquered by force or by treaty. Ultimately, they reluctantly agreed to honor Abu Ubaidah's peace treaty. This crucial agreement guaranteed the citizens' safety, protected their temples, and, most importantly, gave a 3-day head start for Thomas and any Byzantine citizens who wanted to flee without being pursued.
Section 4. A New Era for Damascus.
The immediate aftermath of this incredible dual surrender permanently altered the political, economic, and cultural fabric of the entire region. Khalid was bound by the treaty, and he stuck to the exact letter of it. He waited precisely 3 days. But the literal minute that clock expired, he launched a fierce, rapid cavalry pursuit of the fleeing Byzantine convoy. He caught up with them near present-day al-Jarrah, defeating them in battle and firmly cementing Rashidun control over the fleeing elite and the resources.
The capture of this magnificent prize was a monumental turning point. It opened up northern Syria for further military campaigns, directly paving the way for the decisive Battle of Yarmouk. But even more than that, Damascus itself was totally transformed. It eventually became the extraordinarily wealthy and influential capital of the Umayyad Caliphate. Arabic became the official language, and the city entered a dazzling new golden age of Islamic administration and culture.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to reflect on those brilliantly engineered siege tactics, the brutal logistical warfare, and that incredibly complex dual-negotiated surrender. Ask yourself, how did this sudden shift of power in this one legendary city set the stage for centuries of global history to follow? Because the Siege of Damascus was so much more than just the capture of a city. It was the dawn of a new cultural era, whose influence is absolutely still echoing today. Thanks for exploring this with me.